Welcome to the Kerri Lane Show. I'm Kerri Lane. Elon Musk just dropped an unexpected bombshell. And this is not your typical Doge uncovering fraud type story. This is a major scandal under the Biden administration, and you're the one paying the price. But that's not all. The spotlight is on Wisconsin's Supreme Court election, and with President Trump's entire agenda hanging in the balance, this race is more crucial than ever. I'm going to explain how this election could have national impacts. Plus, you won't believe what President Trump demanded from the conservative judge in this race if he's elected. You're going to hear that. Now, voters are about to decide whether Trump-backed Judge Brad Schimmel or liberal Circuit Court Judge Susan Crawford will fill the pivotal 7th seat on the state's Supreme Court. Schimmel says this race is getting national attention because of this.
My opponent got caught by the New York Times, of all places, with an email that went out to national billionaire donors that said, come onto a Zoom call and we'll teach you how taking the Wisconsin Supreme Court can change 2 Republican congressional seats into Democrat congressional seats.
Democrats have made no secret of their plans to redraw Wisconsin's district lines if Susan Crawford wins. Now, this could potentially cost Republicans 2 House seats, which is huge because if that happens, Democrats could retake control of the Senate in 2026. What is their goal? We know it's to block President Trump's agenda. Now, Elon Musk has been outspoken about the importance of this race, donating $1 million each to 2 different voters this past weekend, which is similar to the actions we saw him take during the presidential election. However, Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar claims Musk, he's just trying to buy the race, and voters aren't having it.
They're saying Wisconsin is not for sale, Jen. Elon Musk has plowed $20 million into this race. It's the most expensive state judicial race in the history of America. There's an incredible candidate, Judge Crawford, who is a prosecutor, a circuit judge. She's just going along her way, a very good choice for Supreme Court, when all of a sudden, pow, in comes Elon Musk offering $1 million checks to people. This is a state where the people own the football team, the Green Bay Packers. So they are seeing this as the people of Wisconsin versus Musk.
An interesting argument coming from a party that is backed by George Soros. Now, according to this article, as of March 28th, Susan Crawford's campaign raised over $26 million, with about 77% of her donors coming from outside Wisconsin. So who's looking to buy the race now? Well, here's Elon's take on why he's actually giving away the money.
You know, the reason for the checks is that it's really just to get attention. It's like we need to get attention, and it's somewhat inevitably when I do these things, the sort of it causes the legacy media to like kind of lose their minds, and then they'll run it on every news channel, and I'm like, I couldn't pay them it would cost like 10 times more.
We have a saying in this business, even bad press is good press because you have everybody talking about you. We'll see if that strategy works here in the coming days. Now let's take a look at the 2 candidates. Judge Susan Crawford has a controversial track record. In 2020, she sentenced a man convicted of 2 counts of first-degree sexual assault of 2 separate children and 1 count of attempted first-degree sexual assault to just 4 years. This despite the prosecutor and victims' families asking for 10. She also refused to revoke his bail while he waited 3 months for sentencing after he was convicted, which had been set at a minimal of $500. Here she is recently defending that decision.
To both of you, quick on these ads we're seeing. You referenced one. In 2020, you did sentence a child sex offender to 4 years in prison after prosecutors requested 10. Do you regret that sentence?
Yes. I don't regret that sentence because I followed the law in that case,
Judge,
as I always do. I applied the law, which says that judges have to consider every relevant factor in sentencing. You have to consider both the aggravating and mitigating factors. And the Supreme Court has said you have to order the minimum amount of prison time you believe is necessary to protect the public. That's what I did in that case and every other case. And my goal is always to keep the community safe.
According to this article, Kevin Welton has completed his 4-year sentence and will only be supervised for another 5 years. He is also living just 1.6 miles away from a high school. Now, Crawford's opponent, Brad Schimmel, responds to accusations that he gave light sentences to offenders like those convicted of domestic violence and sexual assault.
Here's a new thing, liberals lying in campaigns. My opponent has given terrible sentences in sex offender cases. Every case that she cited in an ad, when I was a DA, I made a recommendation that the judge didn't even follow and gave less time than I recommended. So I didn't give anybody a sweetheart deal. And now as a judge, all the cases she cited, every single one of them, I followed at least what the DA recommended and at least what the victim recommended in those cases. I've never come up short in any of that. She is lying to voters.
Democrats lying. Where have I heard that before? Now, I did look through several of his cases and was not able to find any that supported Crawford's claims. Now, we know the left loves accusing President Trump of playing politics behind the scenes, but here's a moment when Schimmel opened up about what Trump expects of him if he's elected.
All he asked of me was, Brad, do you reject activist judges? Are you going to follow the law? That's exactly what I've committed to anybody, whether it's President Trump, Elon Musk, or any donors or supporters or voters in Wisconsin. That's my commitment.
It's hard to argue that Trump is the one weaponizing our justice system after you hear that all he's asking is for this judge to be fair and follow the law. Meanwhile, Elon Musk was in Wisconsin last night trying to drum up voter enthusiasm at a town hall when he dropped this unbelievable bombshell that left my jaw on the ground. You ready for this? Roll it.
You'll notice there's a strange trend here where how many Social Security numbers were issued?
In 21, you see 270,000 people, goes all the way to 2.1 million in 24. These are non-citizens that are getting Social Security numbers.
Yeah, this is a mind-blowing chart.
Yeah, just this literally blew us away. Like, we went there to find fraud, and we found this by accident. This number, what this is when you come in the country, if you're an illegal, there's a couple ways to come in. You come in through a port of entry, and you can tell them you're afraid, and they'll give you an asylum case. You'll get an interview, then you get in. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to just go to the border. Literally, this happened. I talked to Border Patrol myself. Elon was there too. I went to Laredo, and I went to Bronzeville. Elon went to Eagle Pass. You walk up to a Border Patrol officer, and you tell them you want to come in. They have a couple of choices. They could charge you with a misdemeanor or a felony under 1325, or they can make it an administrative offense, like a parking ticket, basically. They were told to do that, make it an administrative offense under the last administration. And then you go walk across the border, they do what's called a release your own recognizance, and they give you an NTA, a notice to appear, which to appear to judge. The wait times on judges are like average 6 years. Look at Grok, you'll see it on immigration judges. There's only 700 of them. This is 5.5 million people, okay? So what happens then? Once you're in the country and you got asylum through one of these pathways, and we've mapped the whole thing out, you can apply for a work document. You file a 765, it's the work form. You get this form called the 766, that's the authorization, and then Social Security Administration automatically sends you in the mail your Social Security number. No interview, no ID.
Okay, so I can already hear the left, right? They're going to try and say this is just another baseless claim from Elon, one that doesn't actually provide any facts. But it does. Let's take a look at the actual Social Security website where it confirms the process you just heard about. And they are actually giving out Social Security numbers to illegal migrants. Right off the top, it says, generally, only non-citizens authorized to work in the United States by the Department of Homeland Security can get a Social Security number. The scandal doesn't end there. A little further down, they add, lawfully admitted non-citizens can get certain benefits and services without a Social Security number. You don't need a Social Security number to get a driver's license, register for school, get private health insurance, or apply for school lunch programs or subsidized housing. That's where your money's going. Wrap your head around that. And if you think that's scary, there's more. Wait until you hear how many illegal immigrants you're paying healthcare for. And listen closely because you will hear the audience gasp as they reveal these details.
It was a massive, large-scale program to import as many illegals as possible, ultimately to change the entire voting map of the United States and disenfranchise the American people and make it a permanent, deep blue, one-party state from which there would be no escape.
Look, if I hadn't seen this myself, I'm not sure I'd have believed it. I went through it myself and mapped it, and Elon is right. this is true. The defaults in the system from Social Security to all of the benefit programs have been set to max inclusion, max pay for these people, and minimum collection. That's what's happening. We found 1.3 million of them already on Medicaid, as an example. We've gone through, on every benefit program we went through, we found groups from this particular group of people, this 5.5 million people, in those benefit programs. And then what was really, really disturbing us was why. We're asking ourselves why. Right. And so we actually just took a sample and looked at voter registration records. And we found people here registered to vote. In this population, yes.
And who did vote?
And we found some by sampling that actually did vote. And we have referred them to prosecution at the Homeland Security Investigation Service.
Yeah.
Already. That is already happening. Right now.
On the issue of illegals voting, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the only states that Kamala Harris won that require a photo ID are New Hampshire and Rhode Island. Those are blue states. The last Republican to win New Hampshire was Bush back in 2000. And for Rhode Island, you have to go all the way back to 1968 when Richard Nixon won the state. Now, I'm sure the left will also argue that Kamala won Colorado, Virginia, Connecticut, and Delaware. But in my opinion, those states don't count. Because while you do have to show an ID, it doesn't have to have a photo on it. So how hard can it be to flash an ID with a name on it? But what are they going to do? There's no picture to prove that that's you or not. So technically, the only two states that Harris won who require a photo ID are two Democratic strongholds. Now, what's bizarre about all this is we have the Biden administration putting illegals before American citizens and forcing us to foot the bill. But all the left wants to do is scream about the Signal chat leak. Over the weekend, Senator Markwayne Mullin went on Meet the Press and defended those involved in the controversial chat that the media is so obsessed with.
Senator, if that's not classified information, what is?
Tell me where the location was at. What part of the region was it at? What part of the world was this at? We have a lot of conflicts, a lot of issues going on around the world, from Africa to anywhere in the Middle East, to even in Asia, or possibly through Europe. This could have been going on any place in the world. There was no specific information except that a target was going to be hit. We have terrorist organizations coming after the United States everywhere because the Biden administration has done nothing for 4 years. Instead of having peace through strength like President Trump is leading, they try to do it appeasement, and what happened is these rogue regimes and terrorist organizations have taken advantage of it. What happened here is President Trump took the fight to our enemies, which should have happened a long time before. What is wrong with the conversation that is going place? In fact, why are we focused so much on this? Why didn't we focus on the 13 service members that was killed in Afghanistan? There was no outcry or anybody resigning from there. What about the idea that when Secretary Austin went MIA for a surgery and went completely offline? No one was talking about him resigning, but the left has completely lost their mind over a good conversation, and that was an absolute successful mission, and they can't let it go because President Trump is leading the world again.
It baffles me when certain people on the left feel they have a place to weigh in on this topic. I've talked about how Eric Swalwell is out of line calling for Pete Hegseth's security clearance to be revoked after he was sleeping with a Chinese spy. And now we have Hillary Clinton calling Pete Hegseth stupid for the communication leak. And she even has the audacity to use the word hypocrisy in her posts. Does she not see it? Has she conveniently forgotten about the security risk she created by having classified information on a private email server rather than the government's secure systems? Because I agree with investigative reporter Catherine Herridge on this one. Hillary should sit this one out. And I would even argue that Pete Hegseth, Mike Waltz, and everyone else on that chat weren't intentionally putting information at risk. They had no idea the reporter was added to the thread. But as for Hillary, she knew exactly what the risks were when she intentionally transferred sensitive information to her private server. Now, Kristen Welker went on to press Senator Mullin on what the men and women serving our country think about this chat leak. She tried to make the case that our military would be upset that they were potentially put in a bad situation. Here's how Mullin responded.
I think the numbers speak for themselves. We've had record numbers of new recruits coming in the service since President Trump has taken office. The morale is through the roof because people are finally saying President Trump has taken the fight to our enemies rather than sitting back and apologizing and focus more on DEI than actual lethality. which is what our service members want to do. They want to sign up for what they did, protect American rights, and go after those enemies that want to come and harm America.
Now, speaking of harming innocent Americans, Elon addressed the violence continuing to be seen around the country at Tesla dealerships.
Isn't it shocking how much violence and hatred is coming from the left? I mean, isn't it supposed to be the party that they claim to be the party of empathy? And yet they're burning Teslas and shooting up dealerships.
Didn't Joe Biden tell us for the past 4 years that the greatest threat to America was MAGA extremists? Yet I don't recall any Republicans burning down vehicles, shooting bullets through a Tesla store, threatening or even physically abusing those who drive a certain vehicle. Here's another disgusting example of what the left classifies as saving democracy.
Take a look at this. This is video from the victim's Tesla camera. It shows a green car pulling up to a Tesla on busy Route 66, then swerving in front to box the Tesla in. The driver then walks over to the 61-year-old woman in the Tesla and reportedly starts hitting her while she's sitting behind the wheel. At one point, the woman says she bit the man's hand. Moments later, the passenger of the green car appears to walk over and pull the attacker away. They finally get back in their car and drive off. We spoke to the victim today, who said she was terrified and can't understand why anyone would do this.
I was just stunned, and I wished that I would have had someone with me that would have protected me. I'm just appalled. I didn't buy my car for a political statement. I bought my car because it's really fun to drive, and my politics have nothing to do with that, and I'm ashamed of our society.
The left just continues to push the boundaries of acceptable behavior, all while justifying their actions with the same tired argument that they're somehow saving America. But at what cost? They conveniently overlook their own hypocrisy and the damage they do in the name of their so-called moral high ground. They stand behind destructive policies, extreme rhetoric, and divisive actions, all while claiming they're the protectors of democracy. The truth is, their actions often undermine the very principles they claim to defend. Now, if you're curious about the latest developments, like the shocking Social Security scam or how a controversial judge tied to Trump's deportation flights is now overseeing another Trump case, then be sure to check out the next video on your screen. Go ahead and click on it now, and have a great rest of your day.